Geekdom is under attack by its most insidious foe yet, the Fake Geek Girl. We're here to get to the bottom of this latest assault on male virginity. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest. We're here at the Satellite in Silver Lake, Los Angeles. I have here today a panel of experts. With me today is Dr. Andrea Letamendi, who is a cosplayer and who has deep psychological knowledge of the ins and outs of what makes nerds tick. With me also is writer, director, actor Amber Benson, and our good old friend, singer-songwriter Allison Goertz, aka Cosby Sweater. So what we're here to talk about is the concept of the Fake Geek Girl. And for people who don't know at home, this is something that keeps coming up. And so I find it interesting that the focus on geek girls in the modern day is attractive geek girls.
Right.
And I would say 90% of the women out there who are geeks are not going to look good in a slave Leia outfit, necessarily, in an aesthetic, modern, mainstream, making it to USA Today's cosplay gallery sense. Do you know what I'm saying?
And that's just because most people don't look good in that costume.
Well, yeah. I'm not placing a judgment on their looks. I'm just talking about when we talk about Comic-Con comes and there's that gallery of 30 most hot cosplays. These women aren't necessarily part of it. So is there a sense that the focus on sexy geek girls is marginalizing women even within the community in and of itself? Because if I'm not able to dress in a in a very attractive outfit, I don't feel comfortable.
So. But they do. Like, there are women that should not be wearing that, and men that should not be wearing that stuff that do wear it, and they feel comfortable and they're confident in who they are. And, that's super sexy. You're like, when you see Slave Leia and she's 350 pounds, and you're like, wow, I would be embarrassed, but you're like, no, she's fucking hot. She looks good, and I would actually have sex with that woman because of her confidence. What I get annoyed with is this need to unsex oneself, very much like Lady Macbeth, you know, where you're like, I have to have to unsex myself because I don't feel like a woman. Like, yeah, I have a pussy or I have a cunt or whatever, but like I don't feel like a woman. I feel like a dude. I feel like a dude on the inside, and I want to be like taken, you know, seriously because of what's going on in here, not because what's happening here.
Do you feel like sometimes you have to like
happening here, but
do you feel like you have to sort of subdue that femaleness in order to be taken seriously? Like if you know.
I think a little bit. There are times I want to be sexy and dress a certain way, but mostly I just want to be comfortable and like be taken seriously for who and what I am. And I think I get annoyed because I'm like, well, you know, I have to be a woman or I have to dress like a woman in order to be a woman. I don't like. I want to just be like who I want to be unsexed. I get annoyed. I want to be like free floating.
Why
with
does
nobody.
gender have to be an issue?
Yeah, exactly. Why does someone have to say, oh, she's a woman? Isn't she smart? Why do we have to say she's a she? Why can't we just be like, that thing is smart?
If you want,
Amber,
I can say that
from now on,
thing.
referring you only as it and the thing. That's it.
But let's talk about why we're
It has a
threatened.
good point.
It has a. I agree with it.
And recently, comic book artist Tony Harris, beloved by nerds for his run on Starman, the DC cult title, wrote this screed on his Facebook about girls at cons who are dressed sexy and who are tricking nerds and who are kind of preying on this world and these fake geek girls. And
wait. What do you mean? What are they tricking them into doing?
I think the argument is that they're tricking them into paying attention to them. Because this is
pay attention to them anyway.
That's the thing. This is the hardest crowd, right? I mean, it's an easy crowd to get attention from, and it's a weird thing. These guys are the victims. That these are guys who are poor, nerdy dudes who have no defenses against girls with boobs. So I guess my first question, though, for you guys is let's sort of get two baselines. One, geek or nerd?
Both geek, nerd, dork. I will identify with that.
I thought I was, but I've spent enough time at conventions now to realize that like I'm not really.
Are you the imposter, Amber? You're the imposter, aren't you?
I'm totally the imposter. Like, I thought I was a big nerd. I'm like, I'm such a nerd. I'm a geek. And then I've gone to these things and I'm like, I couldn't tell you what anybody says in any of these things. I can't quote it back to you. There's so much minutia involved with being like a geek or a nerd these days, and I don't have that. Like, I love fantasy and I love science fiction. But maybe I'm less of a nerd than I think.
I actually think that's enough. I think self-identification is enough. All of these nerd, geek genres, it's so vast. How could any one single person know everything? So I just think it's absurd. Well, you
Allie, are you a nerd and a geek?
Yeah, I'd say so. People definitely call me one. And I definitely, it is the glasses. I don't even need them, but. Yeah, no.
Snap.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't go around walking telling people that's what I am, and I don't label my music as that.
I think it's not a self-applied label. It was never a thing like where I woke up and I was like, I really love space movies. It was always like, oh Christ, I love space movies. Ghostworld, Steve Buscemi's character says, I hate my interests.
Well, you think it's healthy to obsessively collect things?
And that's always sort of what it's been like. It's a compulsive
I can't believe you went
need.
to the movie and not to the comic book, though.
I don't remember if he said it in the comic book. I know.
You're not a nerd.
I'm not a Dan Clowes nerd. I'm not a Dan Clowes nerd, but I'll sit here and I'll go toe to toe with you on Star Trek, the original series. But so that's interesting to me that for you that it's self-identification is enough.
Sure.
And for me it's almost like a neurological deficiency.
Well, no,
being a nerd.
I
I was born this way, like Lady Gaga.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I was born this way. It feels like this innate drive, like this innate motivation. And I was closeted too. I couldn't really talk about that I liked Transformers or Star Wars or Batman because I couldn't find friends that liked the same things.
Right now, you kind of want to be a nerd because that's what's in trend.
It's a little
but,
chic, yeah.
You know, in middle school, when I certainly...
It's hitting like a zenith now.
It is. When I was in middle school, Harry Potter was the thing, and yeah, so I wore a cloak every day that I made, and I had like a drumstick that I used as a wand, and
that is
I wrote myself.
neurologically deficient.
I
Yeah,
wrote
that's
myself
bad.
letters
Yeah,
and
that's-
faked an accent for an entire semester. So I think that's when I realized that maybe I was nerdy.
I love hard sci-fi. Like, I love Neil Stephenson. I love science. Like, quantum physics is very exciting to me. I get Scientific American. Like, I feel like there are things that are very interesting that fall into the nerd realm.
Right.
But do I know the minutia of Star Wars? Maybe not.
Yeah, I think you could be nerdy about non-nerdy things too. Like you
Yeah.
could be a nerd about like Hollister. Like you could be a nerd about anything. Like if you're really, really, really into it and it's all you think about. Like you could be a car nerd, you know.
I don't know. I don't think I want to go there. Because under that definition, then those guys who wear makeup at football games are nerds.
Some of the costumes that you see football fans create are the most elaborate, expensive, over-the-top costumes. And I don't know that I can argue that that's not cosplaying.
Is it about attention though? Is that what? Because we should cycle back to the geek girl, the fake geek girl thing. Because maybe it's about attention. Maybe there's something in this. The kernel of this is attention.
We haven't even really gone over what a fake geek girl is.
Right.
is a fake
Well, that's
girl?
the next step. But Amber, now you run the show, so this is Badass Digest with Amber Benson. My other sort of weird life experience is I grew up in punk, and which is a world that is obsessed with cred.
A little Fugazi action.
Well, it's obsessed with cred, and it's obsessed with the idea of posers, and the idea this is a subculture, and then it's okay to have a subculture be sub. That it doesn't have to have
You don't
everybody in
want
it.
people
Well, that's
to
the
find
thing. You don't want people to find it. You want people to be part of it. And there is sort of a litmus test for are you a legit
definitely
member
is.
of the community.
You know, how can you define if someone's an imposter when you don't have prerequisites for what a geek is? I mean, we just had a discussion about
Is there a prerequisite?
No, I mean, there's the only prerequisite before you walk into a convention is like, are you wearing shoes? and like, do you have a ticket? That's all they care about. Why would someone falsify fandom for any particular, you know, interest
Why
or
would
like?
someone go, I want to be a nerd? Like, why would they
Oh.
like fake that?
Allie.
Allie?
Yeah, why would somebody, as a fake nerd, why do you do it? What do you think a fake geek girl is, and why do you think they exist?
There are two things I think people think of. One I disagree with, and that's what I am, which is a woman that writes about nerdy things, and therefore I can't actually like them because I'm a woman and because I'm probably trying to eat your heart and make you think that I like these things that I don't. But then there are the people that are actually doing that, I guess.
Do you think that they ruin it for the rest of us who have grown up, years and years liking these things and have been bullied for it, didn't have friends, finally feel like...
You got friends?
I finally have friends. It's great.
Why am I the only one without?
Oh, you still don't have friends? No,
still.
now is the time to get friends.
Oh, is it?
Is it about like attractiveness? Because there's this whole thing like pretty women can't be funny, pretty women can't be nerds.
It's always tough to look at somebody who's attractive and accept them as into really weird
Because you hate
things.
them because they're attractive.
No, because you figure they have other options.
You're like, you
That's
could just
the
be
thing.
normal
It's like, you can be
because you're
normal, right? I
pretty.
can't be normal. Like I am
Yeah,
what I am,
and
and so you lucked out into somebody who
So
could
it's
go.
not fair.
You could go to the
You're
parties.
saying it's not fair.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's like if
Like
you
you're
live,
pretty and you can get people to have sex with you, so it's not fair
Well,
that you want to be a nerd
the metaphor
like me.
again for
That's
de-
all I have is my nerdiness.
That's all. It's true.
I mean, I've talked to men who say, I grew up wishing that those types of women, like that woman, as attractive as that, would talk to me, but all I got was rejection. It was never a possibility. So I think you're right that it's sort of this illusion,
anger.
and then they carry that, and they carry that resentment, and then they go to a con, and then they see someone who's dressed up and they're attractive, and they think, God damn it, like how dare she?
Growing up as a nerd, it was all about finding people who were like you. And very
That's
often,
the litmus test.
Well, very often it was about people who were outcasts, for people who were on the edge, people who were not correct, people who didn't look right, people who weren't able to fit in. And so the idea of geeks being sexy at all was always the last thing from our minds, because it was. I always think about that episode of Freaks and Geeks where they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, that last episode. And the idea is that you live in this fantasy world because the real world that you have is so dissatisfying.
Well, dwarves are fighters. They're really good at it.
So that's what's interesting to me about the idea that we've now moved into a sexy thing, where it's like, oh, lightsaber lingerie battle. And it's sort of, or like, oh, the bathtub lightsaber, which is the other one that's so big.
The bathtub lightsaber?
There's 4 million views on this YouTube video. Why did we move into the sexy thing? Like, how is that part of being a nerd?
Because sex sells, and everybody wants to have sex.
Right, but is that part of what is fake about it then? If we're moving into the sexy stuff because sex sells.
We've come to like an edge. We're sort of gonna like in the Life of Brian fall off the world. You know what I mean? Like, I just quoted Monty Python. Weren't I cool?
That's a real nerdy thing to do.
I know it is.
JB Smoove and Garfield watch Greg Benson's movie review and then give you their thoughts on A Good Day to Die Hard. Jack and Uncle Al debate the terrestrial locomotion of zombies, the lack of zombies at the Olympics, and the merit of zombie literature. Jesse Miller advises unsuspecting movie fans on what to rent from Redbox. 'Tis the season. Gray Drake gives you our top 10 holiday films of all time. Ben Lyons gives his take on Aaron Sorkin's real-time Steve Jobs biopic, Redundancy in Hollywood, and is joined by Colleen Ballinger, a.k.a. Miranda Sings. Devin Faraci visits iconic Hollywood locations used by one of the most badass filmmakers ever, Quentin Tarantino. Get your film fix. Subscribe to Cinefix.